Hello everyone, my name is Strifium and welcome back to another video. It is another broadcasted video, of course, where I jump into a lobby and commentate a virtual F1 race. Now this time around, I joined my usual co-commentator Mikcow for an MRL League practice ahead of Season 3, which I commentate regularly on Thursdays, and of course the information will be spoken about throughout this video and in the description below as well. So I hope you enjoy the video. This is what I'm normally used to doing. This was an offline cast that me and Mikcow did just for some practice during a practice session for MRL, and this is a mixed grid. It's a mix between Tier 1 and Tier 2, and it was a lot of fun and kind of good to get back into the groove of things ahead of our usual Racing League season. So I hope you guys enjoy the racing. It was an overall fairly good race, a lot of overtaking, a lot of intense stuff. Damage was off because, again, it's a practice, but the safety car was on. We didn't see one, but you never know, a spin may spark something, but because there's no debris on circuit, we didn't see a safety car. The corner cutting was on strict, so you will see a significant amount of corner cutting penalties or exceeding track limit penalties just because of the severity of strict corner cutting in the F1 2020 game. But it's just an overall good race to check out. 50% distance. I hope you enjoy. Hello everyone and welcome back to another MRL broadcast. Here we are in Australia for the first practice session of the season. It is Shenjay on pole position with Remco Van Putten and Nigel rounding off your top three for some inter-tier racing action. Of course, Yoda in fourth, Brainstew in fifth, new driver to the MRL, Freeware in sixth, and Swifty in seventh. Astrodate takes up eighth position in a car you would not normally see him in. He is in the Haas this season with CJ in ninth and Jasko running off the top 10th. But of course, with me commentating as always is Mikcow, and he will be able to take us through the rest of the grid as we jump into this session here for this Australian Grand Prix. Mikcow, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Striff. I'm just glad to be back at the circuit for the next season. So yeah, the rest of the grid as follows. So A2K is in 11th position, Hyper in 12th, Black Sheep 13th, Jack in 14th, Inulator in 15th, Juicebox 16th, Unicorn 17th, Max Zingster in 18th, and Isamax and Gadwin round off the final row. So that is the grid for this practice race here this evening. And I'm quite interested to see what tyres everyone decides to go for, because Australia is one of those tracks where tyre wear can become a massive, massive issue if you don't manage them correctly around the lap.
Most definitely here in Albert Park for sure. Tires can play a large role. Of course, we're going to be off to our formation lap here. You can see all drivers on the grid with the exception of two, Mikcow, with Juicebox and Max Zingster on the medium compounds. The rest of the drivers lining up on those red-colored soft compound tires. And what do you think about that here, jumping into this formation lap?
Well, obviously it looks like Juicebox and Max Zingster looking to go long in their first stint, maybe try and get that overcut once they're able to get some clean air. But otherwise, it's pretty standard. I think most drivers will be trying to do, doing a soft to hard tire strategy, just to make sure that their tires do last towards the end. But I do know that a soft to medium is possible if you've got the right setup and driving style to manage those tires. But certainly the Juicebox and Max Zingster will be going to the hard compound tires.
For that one-stop optimal strategy. Yeah, it seems like it would make sense for them. Of course, in these races, Mikcow, this is always a good time to bring up, some strategies can get thrown out of the window quite quick here in F1 League racing, as safety cars always, almost always anyway, play a role.
Yeah, well, safety car is on for this practice session, trying to give the drivers as real of an experience as we can without, ruining it entirely. So damage is off for these drivers at the moment, but everyone's just trying to get their eye in on the circuit, as we've had a bunch of cars disqualified from the formation lap. Looks like there was a massive pile-up at the exit of turn 12, so that's very unfortunate for those drivers. They're going to be having some cooler tires off the start, but as the leaders are now coming around the final corner. Our pole sitter Chenjie just making his way to his grid slot, and we will be underway very shortly, Striff.
Interesting thing as we jump into this practice session ahead of Season 3. Everybody's in new cars, Mikcow. Almost everybody's in new cars, and we'll take these drivers and viewers through that in just a few moments. But of course, the lights are on here in Australia. There is the pit stop on your screen. And we have a delay on the lights.
5 lights. And away they go. Looks like a pretty decent start all around. Actually, Remco van Putten getting a great start off line. He's jumped Chenjie into the lead into turn 1. There's a lot of carnage behind them. It looks like Swifty's had a spin at turn 2 as well, and Nigel has had a spin as well at the exit. So a lot of action here on this opening couple of corners, as Gadwin makes a nice dive around the outside of Inulator into turn 3, and the two Williams side by side down in 11th and 12th position in turn 4.
A lot of action happening through this second sector right now, Mikcow. Everybody's just so bunched up here. The pace is very clear from all of these drivers at this race start. You can see there Freeware going along the outside of CJ. It's possible CJ may have had an illegal overtake there because he is just, well, for starters, he dropped that position to Freeware, but I don't think he saw A2K coming. A2K gets into 6th position for the Scuderia. A2K looks to defend to the inside.
That's Hyper. Hyper's had a spin at turn 11. Sorry, that's turn 12, I believe. So his tires are going to be cooked, and he's going to be down in 20th position. That's very unfortunate for the Ferrari. But it looks like Remco van Putten has held on to the lead for this first lap. Probably this is the first experience the drivers have had on a 50% race fuel load around this circuit ahead of the official race on Thursday. But yeah, it looks like it's been a pretty tentative start for the front runners. A little bit of a gap starting to form between the top 5 and the rear.
Very tight with Van Putten into turn 3 there, Mikcow. They were wheel to wheel just briefly. Van Putten with the better exit in this fight for the race lead right now. But as you were saying, Season 3 starting this Thursday, like you said, 50% race fuel load. Nobody has had an opportunity to drive with that just yet. The only ones that have, I think, out of this pack were maybe in the endurance race we did last weekend for the Hungarian Grand Prix, 100%. And we did, of course, Austria the week ahead of that. But
Juicebox seems to have had an issue between turns 5 and 6. So he's now at the back, some 9 to 10 seconds behind Hyper, who's trying to make his way back up the field. There's another yellow flag in Sector 2. That's Freeware. Freeware seems to have spun around at turn 12. That's not something you see very often. So he's now going to have to try and recover. And Swifty has spun again at turn 13. So these fuel loads and the increased dirty air on this game really seem to be affecting some of these drivers a fair bit here, Striff.
Definitely the new driving model and the way things work playing a massive role here. It's extremely hard to get your tires cooled down in the current driving model. That's something that we've noticed. It's also extremely easy to heat them up in comparison to the previous game. So it's very, very important to keep your tires cool as Gadwin, makes a move ahead of Itza into position 11, or that may have been a defense. Not entirely sure at the moment. Gadwin in 11th, a second behind. Inulator in 10th, defending against the Racing Point.
Yeah, it looks like Juicebox has had enough. Williams calling that car into the garage, so he is out of this race. So we're down to 19 drivers at the moment, but DRS has been enabled as it is lap 3. Hyper picking up a 3-second time penalty, and Chenjie right on the rear of that Renault, heading through the fast chicane, trying to get the power down as best he can. That overtake mode is engaged with the tiny bit, trying to get that extra acceleration out of the corner, but it just isn't quite enough to catch up to the Renault in front of him.
Remco van Putten leading a train right now as Yoda and Brainstew aren't far behind Chenjie either in this fight for race position and race win position. Now, as we go down further down the grid, Gadwin still on the rear of the McLaren in 11th position, Hopefully going to be able to make something happen here. Will he be able to make a move with the DRS and overtake down into turn 1? We are about to find out.
Yeah, so that DRS and overtake mode engaged. He's got the slipstream. I assume he's using Rich Mix as well. They're wheel to wheel. Red Putin squeezing him to the outside, leaving just enough room for the AlphaTauri. And he successfully defends that position. But looks like those two have to consider that Yoda and Brainstew are also within that DRS zone right behind them. And Jack, who's made his way up into 5th place, now on the attack as well, trying to hunt them down some 2 seconds behind the front runners.
Very fast up the front indeed. Meanwhile, Nigel currently less than half a second behind the rear of another fairly quick driver, Freeware, in this fight for 14th position right now. Nigel hopefully looking to secure some easy slots. Ooh, and Yasko and I want to say Astrodite got caught up. Who was that off the side there into turn 7, 8? Or excuse me, that's 9, 10. Not entirely sure.
I think Astrodite might have tapped Jasko because he's letting him back through. There's also been an incident with Inulator and Unicorns also spun at the exit of turn 12. So it's all happening here in Albert Park, and Jasko's gone around again at turn 11. So a lot of drivers seem to be struggling, but back with this front few, looks like Shenjay's trying to look around the outside, but he's going to get a better exit hopefully through turns 1 and 2. DRS wide open. They're both these front two on the same amount of battery. Chenjay diving down the inside, locks up a little bit. That's going to give Van Pruitenen the space, trying to hold it around the outside to regain that position. And Yoda in the McLaren, as well as Bracer in the Mercedes, right behind them, going through turns 5 and 6.
Very fast through sector 2 here now. These guys are going to be fighting. It's going to be very tight. That's Yoda into second position. He's wheel to wheel with Remco Van Putten, and Shenjay is into the race lead with Brainstew looking to pick up some pieces here. Meanwhile, Jack S has been slowly gaining on them as this battle has ensued. He is almost a second behind.
He's just 1/10 out of that DRS, and I think Van Putten just got on the grass at turn 7, and just that unsettled the car so much, and he's now lost the position to both Chenjay and Yoda as a result of that. Still holding on to a podium place for the moment, though, as it looks like Gadwin has gotten past the Ferrari of A2K down for 8th position.
And that's Jack S. Mikcow. He's now within DRS range of Brainstew. If he's able to maintain that into this pit straight, we could see a possible exchange here if he's able to get a good enough exit out of the final turn. Looks like he may have gone a little wide there.
Yeah, not the best exit for the Renault. He's now just hovering right on that 1 second bubble, but he will have DRS for this next DRS zone, as he was within 1 second at the detection point just before the final few corners. But we have our first pit stop of the day on lap 6, and that is Freeway into pits onto a set of hards. So it looks like he's going to be trying to make his way to the end of the race, and I do believe he will come out in last. Jasko just makes his way past the pit lane now.
You know, Gadwin, he was getting near the rear of that racing point, Black Sheep in 7th position, but he just went a little... He went off the circuit, really, into turn 4. I don't know what happened. Maybe a catch of oversteer caught him on the inside wall, but he had to go on the grass, and he has lost a massive amount of time. Meanwhile, Nigel is currently on the rear of that Ferrari, A2K in 9th, trying to defend against the Alfa Romeo.
Looks like it's going to be a pretty easy move for the Alfa Romeo, just round the outside, heading into turn number 11. As A2K will actually pick up a penalty at turn 11 for multiple warnings, as the two houses are also exchanging. It looks like there's been an incident, actually, at Astrodite, falling back a little bit, down in 17th place. But meanwhile, up the front, everything looks to be the same for now. Chenjay trying to stretch his legs a little bit, does set the fastest up the race so far with a 124.6. But Yoda still 5/10 behind him, lurking in that DRS zone, and that's keeping the McLaren in this race.
Yoda looking really quick this season here in Australia already, and it isn't even the official race right now. This is, of course, an exhibition, a mock race, and it looks like we have a big issue in Sector 3.
The McLaren of Inulator looks like he spun it on the last corner, reset the track, and he's actually now taking out the Haas of Max Singster as well. So that is very unfortunate for those few. And Freeware now up into 17th place as A2K also dove into the pits for a fresh set of hard compound tires.
Freeware onto those hards, as you suggested. Some drivers may do here. Go for a soft hard strategy with that early pit stop. His tires were just done. Hyper, meanwhile, looking for a move on the AlphaTauri. Or excuse me, I couldn't even. It's the Will at the front. It looked okay, I swear. But that's Unicorn in 11th position, looking to defend away from the Ferrari. Coming into the 11-12 chicane. How's it gonna go?
Looks like Unicorn cutting turn 12 just a little bit. Probably received a warning for that. But Hyper, with his 3% ERS left, has that overtake on DRS enabled. He's trying to dive down the inside of turn 13. Unicorn leaving all the space for the Ferrari. It looks like Hyper has made that move stick for 11th place, as we have Remco Van Poon and Brainstew both into the pits onto those hard compound tires. So they're going to be trying to get the undercut on the 2 leaders of Chenjay and Yoda, who are still out on those 7-lap-old softs.
Hyper goes to the inside of the pit lane here to try to break Slipstream. They're going to come into some traffic now. That's Brainstew getting out in 10th position with Van Putten ahead of him in 9th. Unicorn with a heck of a lot more battery in that Williams than Hyper in that Ferrari at the moment. Hyper behind this traffic, though, going to have a unique opportunity to perhaps save some. But he's going to have to make way with this traffic fairly quick. I do believe those soft compound tires right now have a little bit of pace in them, at least enough to get out of those hard runners. But then again, Albert Park, very hard on tires. Could be that those hard compound tires are faster than the softs at the moment. But meanwhile, Unicorn...
I think that is the case. I do think that is the case. Just finishing up the tires, so these guys still on the softs are going to really be feeling it if they have a setup or their driving style isn't the best on the tires. But I just also want to say that Brainstew and Remco Van Putten getting ahead of that train being led by Hyper at the moment was very, very crucial for their race strategy. Getting caught in traffic like that is just going to kill that undercut as Jack makes his way into the pits. But the 2 leaders still staying out for the time being, so they are feeling good on those softs for the moment.
Renault made the call. Lap on, lap off for their drivers to get them into the pits there, so one after one another. Meanwhile, like you said, Yoda, he's sticking on those softs, but he has dropped out of the the DRS range of that AlphaTauri ahead in the lead. Ooh, and he's had an issue coming out of 8.
Yeah, just trying to get the power down on the curbing at turn 7. Just slams him into the right-hand side wall. So that's not something he wants to be doing at all. I was about to say doing very often, but I don't think he wants to be hitting the walls at all. Come the official race. Chenjay picking up a 3-second time penalty at the fast turn 11 and 12 chicane. Yeah, it looks like we have these little clusters of cars forming. Currently the closest to, from what I'm seeing, is this battle for 6th at the moment. Brainstew just 4 tenths behind the runner of Van Putten heading into turn 11.
Brainstew looks like he's going to have a go here maybe with the DRS. He's close. He's going to have enough power. He's not utilizing his overtake. He's being very, very patient with his battery. More patient than I've seen some drivers in this race already. My brain goes to Hyper. We saw him drain it completely earlier, and he's currently sitting at 14th% in the Ferrari. Meanwhile, it's a Max dropping a position to CJ. CJ getting out in front of him in the Alfa Romeo. He's up into 11th. Now his next target will be Unicorn. Now we see Nigel, Yoda, and Chenjay all jumping into the pit lane here. Yoda going to be coming out in 6th behind Brainstew. So Brainstew and Van Putten, the undercut has definitely worked for them over the McLaren. However, Chenjay, very rapid, getting out in front still. But he is onto the medium compound tires, as is Yoda. So they are going to have a little bit more pace in those tires right now. What do you think about all of this, Mikcow?
Well, you could certainly tell that Brainstew was pushing. He has set a new fastest lap of the race on his first flying lap on those set of tires. But interesting that Chenjay and Yoda both went to the mediums. I personally feel like it's still a tad early for those medium compound tires. They definitely will have a significant pace advantage of maybe 5 tenths a lap compared to those on the hards, and certainly a whole lot more compared to those on the softs, as Chenjay is now eyeing up Swifty heading into turn 13. Looks like he can't get the move done straight away. Oh, actually he can. Because Swifty makes a little bit of a mistake heading into that corner, and Chenjay's now up at the second. But yeah, as I was saying, those mediums are definitely going to be feeling it towards the end of the race. So some tire management is going to definitely be required from those two.
Yeah, and Red Bull has given Swifty the call to come in now. Meanwhile, Gadwin still in the lead of this race at the moment. He has made up 19 positions in this one so far, Mikcow. He has been having a fantastic drive here in Albert Park. Currently leading this race on those 10-lap-old soft compound tires. He's more than likely going to be seen coming into the pit lane at the end of this lap, perhaps to go on to maybe some mediums. It looks like Swifty's on the mediums,
Yeah.
so could we see Red Bull opt to put their drivers on mediums here? It's going to be an interesting one, that's for sure. Meanwhile, Brainstew in 4th position, currently less than a second behind Van Putten still, as these drivers look to try and catch up with Chenjay. Chenjay looks to be in a league of his own right now on those medium compound tires, Mikcow.
Well, we're certainly using the grip advantage to good effect there, Striff. Yeah, I'm assuming Gadwin is going to come in on this lap for a set of medium tires. I think from about lap 10 or 11, mediums should be okay to make it to the end. But I'm still concerned about Chenjay and Yoda because they really aren't going to have any grip towards the end of the race, and these guys on the hards, whilst not being much better, grip-wise come the end of the race, they will still have a little bit more life in them, I feel. But interesting to see what they do, as yes, Gadwin does come into the pits, and I presume that will be for a set of medium tires. So Chenjay back into the lead of this race.
Now, Mikcow, I was just privileged enough to watch a fantastic overtake from Itzamax on Unicorn. There in Sector 2, we had a beautiful helicopter cam. Now he's into 14th position on the soft compound tires at this stage of the race. So, very interesting strategy from him. Gadwin is in. Off those mediums, onto the mediums, he has gone now. Off those softs. And it is currently Chenjay in lead of this race with Remco Van Putten in second, Brainstew in third, and Yoda on the mediums in 4th position, looking to regain that second position that he had already snatched up earlier after seeing Brainstew and Remco Van Putten jump into the pits. So, hopefully, he is able to make up some good pace behind those front runners on the hard compound versus the mediums. Freeware takes a 3-second time penalty after multiple warnings.
Yeah, it looks like Black Sheep further down the grid in 10th has gotten past one of the cars, I believe, but Nigel now within 3/10 of the racing point, or the pink Mercedes tracing point, whatever you want to call it. Of course, all the cars equal spec in this lobby, so there isn't any outright car advantage for all these drivers. It's all down to the driver and their setups. Nigel very, very close to that racing point, does very well to keep that car stable under the event's dirty air. Will make that move easily for P10, and we're seeing a lot of penalties come, thick and fast from the race director. And that's something I want to mention as well, is that in this game, the track limits are a lot stricter if you go over those white lines, and it looks like Black Sheep has had a moment at turn 15 as well. He'll be diving into the pits.
Excuse me, Mikcow. It looks like Brainstew may have had an issue because he has dropped a position to Yoda here. I didn't see that tight of a gap. Yoda, though, he's very, very close to the rear of Remco Van Putten already, coming into turn 9.
Yeah, he's right on the back of this Renault. I didn't see exactly what happened with our front runners at the time. I was focused on what was going on a bit further down the pack. But yeah, Yoda very close to the back of that Renault, trying to keep as close as he can. He is using that overtake mode and the DRS, trying to get as close as he can to the Renault, but it just isn't enough to make a dive around the outside at turn 13. The Renault driver defending very, very well. But the oncoming attack, especially on those fresher medium compound tires, is certainly going to be a hard one to stop on this main pit straight.
He is absolutely hunting down this Renault right now, Mikcow. Brainstew.
Overtake DRS. He's trying to go down the inside. There's been a bit of contact between the two, and that's going to allow Brainstew to get a so much better exit. They're so tight here, going down the second DRS zone. Yoda has to take to the grass a little bit. Yoda will have that deep inside line. It's 3 wide going into the corner, and Remco Van Putten ultimately comes out worst in that exchange. Yoda up into second, Brainstew into third, and Van Pruten down into fourth.
And we have had a retirement. That's Nigel. I do believe he has retired the car in the pit lane. Black Sheep, Max Singster out of it as well in this race. Now, the thing with Yoda there was he was on that inside of turn one, and it looked as though Remco Van Putten was squeezing him onto that inside, and he just wanted to kind of whip back out onto the outside and maybe cut through into turn one and just make it cleanly through. But in doing that move, not only did it give Yoda the inside line where all he had to do is hug that line through the turn, but it allowed Brainstew to make a very unique move coming out of turn two.
Sorry to cut you off this strip, but Remco Van Putten trying a really aggressive dive into turn 13, using all the battery that he has, just isn't able to make that move stick, locks up a little bit and just goes too deep. Now he's in Ricardo's car, but that was a bit too much, if I do say so myself.
He is going to have DRS into turn one, allowing him to catch up to that Mercedes, but he is doing so at the expense of his battery. You can see his battery deployment. He has very little battery at his disposal right now. He's using it with DRS, which is good. He's getting a lot of speed, but he needs to maintain that speed throughout the lap to stay consistent with the rear of Brainstew. Brainstew, though, coming out of turn three, a little shaky on the rear of that Mercedes. Yoda has done very well to get out in front of these drivers on the medium compound tires for now. That will do well for him going through into the end of this race, as we still have about 14 laps to go here. We're just crossing over that halfway point, Mikcow.
Yeah, as you can see from the track map on the right-hand side of your screen, the grid sort of split up into these little clusters of cars. So we have the battle going on for third place at the moment. Yoda seem to be pulling away. There's this battle for fifth, that's Reggie Owen, with Jack right on the back of CJ. Those softs on the Alfa Romeo definitely going to start to be feeling it around 6 laps away. Then we have the two Red Bulls going at it for P8 and 9 respectively. And then we have the cluster for the French points just heading into turn number 9 now.
The two Red Bulls, 8-9, have been showing some pretty good pace on these mediums, Mikcow, cutting through this field. Gadwin, as we saw earlier, he was leading this race, Swifty behind him. Hopefully they're able to make their way up through into some good positions, as Freeware ahead of them is on 10-lap-old hards at this point in the race, and Swifty's only 2.5 seconds behind him. Gadwin sticking with him for the DRS.
Yeah, those two Red Bulls definitely going to be trying to use that DRS to get as close as they can, trying to catch up to that sister team of AlphaTauri. But there's a lot of close action further down the grid. Looks like Hyper's come into the pits now to retire the car. Very unfortunate for the Ferrari. But yeah, just this DRS train, you know, Albert Park can be a difficult track to overtake. We have seen some great overtaking already this race, but realistically, Albert Park, not one known for its massive amount of overtakes, just given the tight nature of the corners and just the nature of the circuit in general, Striff.
Right. It's definitely one of those unique circuits, but we have CJ right now in 5th, under pressure from Jack in that Renault. We saw Jack running in 5th position earlier in the Renault. He's showing good pace here in Australia, as he did last season. CJ into the pit lane now for Alpha.
CJ wants to get off those softs. There's also been a spin at the exit of turn 5. Looks like it's Annulator as Change drives by. Annulator now retiring the car. So it looks like he's had enough of the Albert Park circuit for today. Just hope it doesn't get in the way of his teammate. That was very, very close between the two McLarens. It looks like he's got out unscathed. Hasn't lost too much time there. So we're now down to 14 runners in this race.
Well, that's why we have practice, Mikcow. That's why we have practice. And that is what this is, of course. It is a practice session. This is not an official race. Just one of those things to get people busy, to get people racing, experience the car under heavy fuel load.
Yeah, and
Remco Van
that
Putten very
increased
close to
dirty air
Brains
as
too.
well. Yeah, the grid seems to be spreading out a little bit. So there isn't really too much happening on the track at the moment. Looks like we have a couple cars still within DRS range, but the closest gap is actually towards the back of the grid, with Jasko trying to make his way closer and closer to that tracing point, heading down into the fast left-right chicane. And other than that, there's also the battle for the final podium place as well, heading into turn 4 between Brainstew and Remco van Putten. Astrodite as well now, trying to line up a move on the Ferrari ahead of him. DRS enabled, overtake mode engaging. Just see the amount of power that he has at the back of that Haas. Zooms past A2K and the Ferrari, and he's now up into the points positions. Swifty picking up a 3-second time penalty, battling with his teammate, and the two Red Bulls still going hard at it, Striff. There's nothing to separate these two Bulls at the moment.
No, and they're doing a good job of sticking with one another, and we've had an overtake into podium positions. It looks like Brainstew has had a big issue, as Remco Van Putten is far ahead of him now.
Yeah, but the looks of things, Brainstew just had a bit of an issue coming out of turn 12, maybe just hit that outside curb in the wrong way, or maybe took too much of the inside at turn 12, either one. Looks like he was facing towards the barriers, which obviously isn't ideal for the Mercedes, so he's lost that podium place, and he's got a hefty mountain to climb to try and regain it.
6.5 seconds is the gap to the podium. Of course, penalties, I do believe most of, if not all of these drivers on the grid right now have taken a penalty in some situation, whether it be an extension or a cut, because as we know in the current format, if you will, we have strict corner cutting, and the corner cutting restrictions, if you will, in this game have been fairly strict, which is, I guess, well, the idea of strict corner cutting. So some of these drivers taking penalties. Now it's a max 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, as he wants to get off of those soft compound tires. Very unfortunate for the Racing Point.
And Van Putten also picking up a 3-second time penalty in that podium place, so that's not going to help his campaign to try and keep that place. I do believe most of the drivers have at least 2 penalties already. I don't think anyone is yet to receive one. Oh, but Yoda. Great catch there from McLaren, just getting a bit of oversteer out of the final corner. Now 13 seconds behind the AlphaTauri of Chenjay, who has now lapped Isamax on lap 20 of this race.
Very, very fast is Shenjay, who of course won the last official MRL race of the season in Suzuka. Now, one thing about Shenjay is his teammate, Freeware, who is the newest full-time roster driver to the MRL, and that is the driver currently running in 6th position right now. On the 14-lap Old Hards, is he going to be able to make up some positions on Jack? I saw Jack take some penalties earlier on. I know he took 3 seconds within the last couple of laps, so depending on penalties, Freeware could possibly secure 5th position. Now, he did start outside of the top 10, which is not somewhere where I would have pegged to see him. It looked as though he was struggling with some track limits in qualifying, because he qualified outside of that top 10, but I definitely know him to be in the pace for, at the very least, in this grid as we see it, to be someone who would qualify in the top 6. So he has climbed out of 11th, I think is where he qualified. Now he's into 6th position in what has been a very interesting race for him. We saw him drop back significantly at the beginning of this race as well. So he's in 6th, hunting down Jack S, sticking within around 2.5 to 2 seconds of the Renault, as Jack S tries to hunt down Brainstew, who had an issue earlier on.
Yeah, so currently the only gap on circuit that is within DRS range is still these 2 Red Bulls. Just nothing can separate these two. I mean, it's great consistency from both of them, trying to keep it clean, but I just I just fear that they might try and emulate, Baku 2018, just fighting together for so long. Could definitely cause some issues as we are now within the last 8 laps of this race.
29 laps of racing here in Melbourne. This is, in my honest opinion, it is one of my favorite circuits. I love watching the cars go around here. The Australian circuit. It's a very nice circuit. I like it a lot. But this race has just come to this kind of stalemate for a few of these drivers. And Gadwin and Swifty are just trying to cut through the field as best they can. Swifty 2.9 seconds off of Freeware at the moment. Freeware's tires are going to start to betray him soon if they haven't already. And you can see Swifty just inside of 2 turns has made up a 10th on the AlphaTauri driver. So maybe these 7-8 running Red Bulls will have an opportunity to catch up to the sister team. We'll see.
Well, certainly at 15, soon to be 16 laps of wear on those hards. They definitely aren't in their prime anymore, and those medium tires will probably still have a little bit of life left in them for the 2 Red Bulls. But just meanwhile at the front of the grid, Chenjay is still pulling away, a couple of tenths a lap from the McLaren of Yoda in second, who has a substantial gap to Remco back in third as well. But of course, which I think will be the standard now in F1 2020, given the nature of the track limits, penalties will be the name of the game. So all these drivers trying to keep it as clean as they can, make sure that they don't extend over that white or yellow line, depending on where you are on the circuit. Just trying to keep the car within bounds. I believe that was Gadwin who showing what not to, as Swifty has spun at the exit of turn 10, so he's now lost a whole bunch of time. He should be able to get that car underway before Sejos makes his way around.
Oh, and Gadwin's had an issue too outside of 12, Mikcow. He has spun it out of 12, so both Red Bulls having issues here on lap 23. Brushing the wall there.
Getting past one of them.
I think he's going to get them both.
Get that car underway. Oh, he's running out of straight to do it, though. I don't think he's going to be close enough. He won't be for the time being, but those tires on that Red Bull in front will definitely be cooked.
CJ, he's going to have a very good opportunity here.
Well, those 2 mistakes from the 2 Red Bull drivers has now opened up a battle here for 7th place between 3 of these cars, and Swifty spinning again on the final corner, so he's now out of that fight. But Sejos now trying to just make his way past that Red Bull, trying to get the traction down as best he can. DRS open, overtake mode is engaged. He is running low on battery, but which way is he going to go? Going goes semi-defensive, holding that inside line. There's a little bit of a tap there, but no love lost between those 2. And Gadwin will hold on to that position heading towards Sector 2.
Meanwhile, there, Mikcow, Freeware getting out ahead of Jackass in that AlphaTauri into 5th position. So we'll have to see what kind of gap he's able to pull away here, depending on penalties for either of those drivers. But Jos, or CJ, as I more commonly know him as, currently in 8th position, sticking with Gadwin quite well here. Swifty trying to do what he can to make up some position, but Sejos on that 6-lap-old medium compound set, gonna have a little bit more pace, I think, than those Red Bulls at the moment. And the DRS and overtake coming into this right-hander, CJ, very, very close.
Yeah, but you need to be getting as close as you can to the car in front without overheating your tires or engine. Goes very deep at the penultimate corner, trying to open up that last corner as much as he can, getting the power down. DRS and overtake open again for the Alfa Romeo. Is he going to have enough speed? Gadwin defensive towards turn 1, holding that inside line. They're side by side. Sejos has to go off the track slightly to avoid a collision, but he will have DRS again, heading towards turn 3, a more common overtaking spot. Gadwin defends the inside again. There's a bit of contact there. CJ just getting a little bit hairy there at the exit of turn 3, heading into turn 4. Swifty now is right in the back in the fight as well. He's managed to catch his way back up to this little pack of 3 cars now. So I think we'll have a proper scrap for these last few laps from Strifium.
Gadwin has done a serious solid for his teammate Swifty here in the fact that he has secured that 7th position for the time being. He's been able to keep that Alfa Romeo behind, and now Swifty in a unique position to perhaps get that position back from the Alfa Romeo as he comes out of 12. He is going to have DRS, but he's spun it again. He does a very good job of getting it under control. Wow. CJ, though, isn't sticking around. He is still looking at Gadwin as he's trying to get a move here so quickly. He just needs to have a little bit of patience. If he's able to stick with this Red Bull, he can get it done nice, calm, and collected. But that battery, he's struggling with that battery right now. DRS down the pit straight, though.
You can just see the effect of the dirty air on that Alfa Romeo. Even with 5-lap fresher tires than the Red Bull in front, he just can't seem to get close enough where he needs to in order to make that move stick. Just judging from the past few laps, probably his best opportunity is heading into turn 13, as the Red Bull seems to be struggling a little bit under high speed and that sudden change in direction. But another fight to keep your eye on, Strifium, is this battle for 5th place. Freeware hasn't been able to pull as far as he probably like to on the Renault behind him. Just trying to break that DRS as best he can, but Jack doing a very nice job to stay within that 1 second. But I don't know how much longer that's going to last.
Well, both drivers with penalties. We'll have to see how things come down once they cross that checkered line. Of course, Swifty still within a second of CJ. Both of those Red Bulls struggling through 11-12. We were talking about it just a few moments ago. It's got to definitely be a difference in tire life, considering it's 8 laps for CJ, 13 and 14 respectively for the Red Bulls. I think CJ is just getting a little bit more traction coming out of that Sector 2 chicane.
Yeah, but he needs to be getting the better traction out of the final corner, and he just isn't really getting enough bite from the rear tires just to get maybe another 10th closer than he has been on any of the previous laps. Looks like that battery is really starting to affect him now. He's now dropped back to a couple tenths from the Red Bull in front of him. But it looks like Swifty is just sort of hovering around that 7 to 8 tenth gap behind the Alfa Romeo as well, as Chenje is about to start the 3rd last lap of this race. And might I just say he's had a commanding run, especially in this second stint.
He definitely has. It has been a very good race for the AlphaTauri driver. CJ just can't pull the trigger on Gadwin. He's not got any battery to play with at all. He's going to have to do this with DRS, traction, and just speed alone if he wants to have any of that battery left to defend after the move is finally made. Gadwin with so much more battery.
Yeah, CJ's just so much later on the brakes into turn 13. That's where he's gaining all the time. He's right on the gearbox of that Red Bull in front. Could this be close enough for the Alfa Romeo? He gets a decent exit. He's certainly been closer than he has been on the last couple attempts. He's using everything that he has left, trying to get that slipstream. Gadwin has to go defensive again into turn 1. There's a bit of contact. They both go off the track, and that's going to allow Swift to get past both of them up back into that 7th place.
CJ maintains 8th position. Gadwin drops into 9th. However, Red Bull isn't too displeased considering it was a switch between their drivers. Wow. Crazy stuff for the Red Bull squad. It's now driver 2 ahead of driver 1 at that team for the moment. You can see the yellow T-cam there on Swifty's car. CJ. Now, is he going to be able to stick with Swifty the way he stuck with Gadwin? Swifty has a lap older compound tire on that car than his teammate.
Well, it looks like he's maintaining that gap that he had before. But heading into as Chenje just rounds the final corner to start oh no, that's the other AlphaTauri, never mind. Forget I said that. Yeah, Swifty, don't do that, my friend. Don't scare me losing the rear end like that. With that, Seajoss is now right on the back of the other Red Bull. Swifty goes a bit deep into the penultimate corner. Seajoss is going to have a better exit, and he is right alongside and past the Red Bull, heading down towards turn 1, as both cars really, really low on battery. It looks like he'll make that move stick. We'll have DRS down the second DRS zone. Swifty trying to use that overtake to stay with the Alfa Romeo. But Seajoss has finally gotten past those two Red Bulls on older medium compound tires.
Very good for CJ to finally get out ahead, but those Red Bulls, dare I say, held him up for quite some time. Now the gap to Jack is 17.9 seconds for the Alfa Romeo driver. Meanwhile, Jack has finally dropped back a little bit from freeware. He's been in 6th position for some time in this Renault. He's currently 1.2, almost 1.3 seconds behind that AlphaTauri in 5th position. Of course, these drivers have now begun the final lap of this race, or most of them have, as Shenjie is currently on the final lap of this race. 29 making his way out of turn 10.
Very commanding performance from the AlphaTauri. 17 seconds to his nearest rival. He's just, he's just had the pace and the consistency, and I only think about seeing him get 1 penalty, so that'll be 3 seconds at the end of his race time. But I think everyone behind him also has a penalty of some sort. But there is a fight that may brew if Yoda makes a little bit of a mistake, as Remco van Putten is right on that bubble of DRS zone. I don't think it'll be enough because he's just run out of laps, but it's very nice to see that Renault catching up very close to the McLaren, as Chenjie will come across the line to win this practice Australian GP. Looks like Yoda will be able to hold off the Renault for 2nd position. So those two will round off your podium places. And yet penalties not having any effect on those 2 positions. Brainstew will come across the line in 4th place. Freeware and Jack, however, still fairly close. Jack just can't find any gap to dive down, trying to make up a position on the other AlphaTauri. But Brainstew coming across the line will finish in 4th. Freeware will finish in 5th. Jack in 6th. As we wait for the battle that we have been watching so intently for a majority of this race, Seajoss, Swifty, and Gadwin come across the line. The 2 Red Bulls going side by side. Photo finish between those 2. Who's going to get out in front? I believe that was Gadwin who made the move stick there. It looks like Astrudite and Jasko also trying to engineer a photo finish, but Astrudite will take the final points spot on penalties, and that has been this practice race.
It was a very good race. Of course, it was 2 different tiers blended together for this one. It's not what we'd normally see. Tier 1 drivers, of course, there's 20 of those that we'll be seeing on Thursday just after the Tier 2 drivers. Of course, that's at 3:15 CDT. That's 3:15 p.m. CDT / 9:15 p.m. BST for Tier 2 action every Thursday. This week, it is the Australian GP, and then following that at 5:15 p.m. CDT / 11:15 p.m. BST. That's when your Tier 1 racers take to the circuit. For the next 22 weeks, every Thursday, we are going to be seeing both of these tiers do battle across what would have been the original F1 2020 calendar. But there you have it, Shenjie with the race win. As you said, Mikcow, a commanding race win at that. Yoda in 2nd, and Remco van Putten, your last podium finisher here in 3rd position for Renault. It's an AlphaTauri, McLaren, Renault top 3 with Brainstew in 4th, Freeware 5th, Jack S6, CJ in 7th, Gadwin in 8th, and Swifty in 9th, with Astrudite over at Haas rounding off your top 10. Meanwhile, the other Mercedes of Giasco, A2K, Unicorn, It's a Max, Inulator, Hyper, Nigel, Black Sheep, Max, Juicebox round off your remaining drivers here on this one. Mikcow, How did you feel about that race?
It was a pretty good race, I feel, especially for first time for most of the drivers. I feel under heavy fuel loads in the dirty air at a track as aero dependent as Australia. So I think all these drivers who participated today will have gained a significant amount of experience that they can certainly use to their advantage come race day on Thursday. But other than that, it was just a great experience to, get this season underway. It's been a long wait
Oh yeah.
between the end of last season, so I'm just glad to be back on the track, ready to see some racing and see what these two grids can offer us in terms of battles and just great racing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun for sure. And we can't wait to have all of you tune into those races. And we can't wait to see all of these drivers get into some very, very good overtaking action. But that is it for us this evening. We appreciate all of you watching. And until next time, good racing. All right.